Thank you. We're going to go ahead and get started to expanding your vocabulary. Welcome everyone to today's webinar, again, called Expanding Your Vocabulary. This is a presentation of the New York State and CSEA Partnership for Education and Training. My name is Nidal, and I'll be your host for our webinar. Our facilitator today is Regina. I'd like to take a moment to point out a few things. First, everyone has been muted to keep background noise to a minimum. Second, if you have any questions or comments, you can type them in the chat box. You can find the chat panel at the bottom right-hand side of the screen. If the chat box isn't open, please click on the chat button at the bottom right. Once chat is open, make sure that everyone is selected in the Send To area. Then please type your thoughts in the box below it. When you have finished typing, simply press Enter. Lastly, we will be performing several activities throughout today's webinar, which involves you clicking on the Raise Hand button, which is located at the bottom right-hand side of the screen. It is next to that smiley's face or reactions button. It looks like an icon of a hand in the air. I'd like you to try raising your hand now. Please click on that Raise Hand button. Oh, I see all those hands going up. You notice how you can see the hands go up next to your name in the participants panel? Now you can put your hand down by simply clicking on that raised hand button again. Great job, everybody. As I mentioned previously, today's webinar is sponsored by the New York State and CSEA Partnership for Education and Training, or as many of you refer to it, the partnership. Some of you may be wondering, what is a partnership exactly? Well, for those of you who are not familiar with us, the partnership is an organization that administers education and training programs for CSEA represented employees through labor management cooperation. It is funded through negotiated agreements between New York State and CSEA. The partnership offers in-person classroom training, online learning, educational advisement services, grants, tuition benefits, labor management services, and other education and training programs, including this webinar we are attending today. The partnership is a joint labor management organization whose mission is to promote career mobility, improve job skills, support workplace safety and health, and promote effective labor management relations. You can learn more about us on our website or by calling us directly. I'll provide our contact information again at the end of today's webinar. Now that we all know a little bit more about the partnership, let's get started with the webinar. I'd like to turn the presentation over to your facilitator, Regina.
Okay, welcome again to everyone to Expanding Your Vocabulary webinar. Again, I'm Regina, and I've been teaching for the partnership for about 15, almost 20 years. And I see a couple of familiar names on the in the chat, so welcome to Expanding Your Vocabulary. And my favorite word game is boggle. So I saw that in the chat a couple of times. So that is a fun word game. Now, before we get started, I'd like to pause a minute and ask everyone a question. How many words do you think the average adult knows? Is it A, 30,000, B, 42,000, C, 55,000, or D, 74,000?
Notice that I've opened up. Notice I've opened up the Slido panel on the right-hand side of the screen. You can take your mouse and click on option A, B, C, or D that you feel is the correct answer. Oh, the answers are mixed.
They're mixed. Okay, let me pull up the Slido. Let me see.
More
Okay.
D's, more people responding to 74,000.
Okay. All right. All right. Let's see. And yeah, everybody, a lot of 74,000. Well, you may be surprised to learn that the correct answer is B, 42,000. And even though a lot of you said 74,000, 42,000 is still a lot of words. So now that we know that the average adult has approximately 42,000 words in their vocabulary, how many do you think they actually use on a regular basis? Is it A, 10,000, B, 20,000, C, 30,000, or D, 40,000?
I have reopened the Slido panel on the right-hand side of the screen. You can take your mouse and click on which option you feel is the correct answer.
Okay. Oh, we have a lot saying 10,000. Okay, we have some. Okay, no one's saying 40,000. All right. 20,000 is coming in second. Okay, we're still getting some more responses. All right, are we finished? You think we're finished, Nidal? Or we have a few more people?
About 58% voted for A, 32 for B. It looks like all the votes are in.
Looks like all the votes are in.
Yeah, 11 for
Well,
C.
okay. All right, that looks like everyone. So the correct answer is B, 20,000. Again, this might sound surprising, but the average American only uses half the vocabulary words they actually know. And this core group of words is called their active vocabulary. The other half of words that a person knows but does not use on a regular basis is called their passive vocabulary. And we'll talk more about this in a minute.
Before we move on, I'd like to remind you that when I open the polling panel, the chat and participant panels may have closed. To reopen them, at the bottom right, find the word participants and click on the arrow next to it to reopen it. Click on the arrow next to the word chat to reopen it, and the chat will reopen as well. If the participants panel is not open, you won't be able to raise your hand. If the chat panel is not open, you won't be able to share your ideas with us. So we would like you to reopen those.
Okay, thank you, Nadal.
Mhm.
Now we'll look at the objectives for this webinar. In order to expand your vocabulary, we're going to first take a look at root words and how knowing some of the most common ones can help you easily understand new words. Another way to expand your vocabulary is by learning synonyms, antonyms, and homonyms of some words you may already know. Now, if you aren't sure what synonyms, antonyms, and homonyms are, don't worry. We'll explain what these are a bit later. Finally, we'll take a look at some commonly confused words and help you to use them properly. Now, let's revisit active and passive vocabulary, and then we'll move on to talking about the root or building blocks of words. As you heard a moment ago, a person's vocabulary is divided into two different categories, passive and active. Our active vocabulary is the words we actually use when speaking or writing. Our passive vocabulary is the words we've learned over the years but haven't regularly used. You'll probably recognize the words in your passive vocabulary and even understand their meaning in the context of a larger sentence or paragraph, but you likely wouldn't use them in everyday conversations or in writing. For example, I have cabinets in my kitchen. I put the things I use the most on the shelves that are easiest for me to reach. That would be like my active vocabulary. I can remember or use these words easily. I put the things that I don't use as much on the higher shelves in my cabinet. And that's like your passive vocabulary. You know those words, but you don't use them as often, so they are a bit harder to come up with in your memory. Now, all this is to say that the more words you probably know more words than you think you do right now. Throughout our webinar today, you may see some words that are new to you. Some may already be a part of your active or passive vocabularies. And along the way, we'll give you some strategies to feel more confident using these words more often. Now, did you know that almost 70% of the words in the English language have Latin or Greek origins? Now, out of curiosity, did anyone here study Latin or Greek in school? If you did, please raise your hand.
You can click on that raised hand button at the bottom of the participants panel if you studied one of these languages. Oh, I see a couple
Oh,
hands.
couple of hands.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. That's that's interesting. Okay. All right. Some more hands, a few more hands. Okay, just a few people. Yeah, that's not unusual. Most people probably study French, Spanish, or German. Okay, now I never studied Latin or Greek, but over the years I started to learn parts of these languages. And I did this because it helped me to more easily know the meaning of more words in English. And today I'm going to teach you a bit of these ancient languages too, so you can do the same thing. As I said, when you see a word you aren't familiar with, it can be helpful to look at the root or base of the word to try to figure out its meaning. You may already know some of these root words. For example, aqua. Aqua is the root word from Latin that means water. You can find it in a lot of words such as aquarium, aqueduct, and aquatic. Now check this one out. The Greek word for bio means life. It can be found in words like biology, autobiographical, and biohazard. And all of these words relate to life in some way. For example, biology is the study of living organisms. An autobiography is a history of a person's life written by them. And a biohazard is something that is dangerous to life. Another common root word is photo. Some examples include photography, which is the process of using light to make a picture of image. A photocopier uses light to copy images from one paper to another. And one you may not know is photometer, which is an instrument used to measure the intensity of light. Let's see if you can think of any other photo words.
Please type some other words with the root photo in them in the chat box. The chat box, again, can be found at the bottom right-hand side of your screen.
Photosynthesis, okay, yes.
Great.
Mm-hmm. Photogenesis, okay. That's a new one for me. I'll have to look that one up. Let me write that down. Any others? We have a couple of good ones. So any other words with photo? Photography, yes, photocopies. All right, now, yes, photocopies. Great. These are some good ones. All right. So here's another one, and you can keep popping them in there. But here's another one, telephoto, which uses a lens to zoom in on an image from a distance. Now, I bring that one up because I want to mention that a root word can appear anywhere in a word and not just at the beginning. So some other words that have photo, let's see, some people are putting more in. Yes, okay, all right. Uh, Photophobia? Is that what that is? Okay, that would be you're afraid of light. Okay, that's another one I'll have to look up. Thank you. And here are some more. Let's see. We have photosynthesis, photographic photographer. How about photojournalist and photogenic? Those are some other photo words. Okay, now I did mention the word telephoto a moment ago. The root word tele means distant or transmission over a distance. And I'm sure you can think of the most common word that uses this root. And you're likely holding one or have one very close by. And that's right, it's a telephone. Now, can you think of some other root words that use okay, telegram, that's it. Good. Telescope, television, telephone, yes. A telescope, yes. Telemed, exact. Let's see now. Telecast. Um, there was one, I'm not sure the pronunciation. Telecast, telegram. Uh, I'll have to look that one. Telecry. Okay, these are excellent.
Oh, there's telepathy.
Telemetry. Thank you. Thank you, Tammy. Thank you. Excellent. All right. Another good job. Telecommute. Yes, don't we love that now, right? All right. And I think teleport. I didn't see that. Teleprompter. How about telepathy? Okay. So now we have examined a few root words, but I want you to know that there are many more in the English language. And one way to increase your passive vocabulary is to practice spotting root words when you are speaking and writing. Noticing which root words come from, noticing which root your words come from can also help you guess the meaning of a word when you haven't heard it before. Okay, here's another word. Lastly, I'd like to talk to you about the root onym and some special words that use it. This is the root word that refers to name. For example, a pseudonym is a fake name. When someone wants to remain anonymous, it means they don't want to be mentioned by name. Another common onym is the root word acronym, which is a word formed from the first letters in a common phrase, name, or title. Here's an example. The word scuba, S-C-U-B-A, as in scuba diver, is an acronym for self-contained underwater breathing apparatus. Now, the first letter of each word combines to create another word. And as a side note, if something is abbreviated but does not form an actual word, such as NYS for New York State, that is called an initialism. Now, other examples of initialism are OMH for Office of Mental Health and OGS for Office of General Services. And I have to tell you, I learned about initialisms from this webinar. Now, in addition to acronyms, we also have synonym, antonym, and homonym, which all refer to a special relationship between words. And we'll explore these a little further. But before we do that, does anyone have any questions about anything we've talked about thus far?
If you do have questions, please click on the raise hand button, or you can type them in the chat box.
And again, this is why I love teaching these webinars, because I always learn something from the participants. So thank you. Pseudonym, yes. I love that word. Okay, doesn't look like we have any, or let's see. Ebony, were you asking about pseudonym? Or you just like that word? Okay, looks like she just likes that word. All right.
Hey, Regina, can I
Next,
make
yes,
the announcement one more time about if
sure.
anyone is calling in, can you make sure to state your full name or type it in the chat box so we don't miss your attendance. Okay, thank you.
Okay. No, that is the word that you just described. Yeah, pseudonym, which means a fake name. Yes. Okay. I hope that answers your question. All right. Next, I'd like to talk about the most commonly used synonyms, antonyms, and homonyms in English. These are great words to add to your active vocabulary. And in fact, some of the most common errors most of us make in writing are due to using these types of words incorrectly. So let's start with synonyms. These are words or phrases that are different, but basically mean the same thing. And here are some examples: customer and client, manager and supervisor, secretary, administrative assistant, and office assistant, speak and recite. Now, it may help you to remember that syn is another root word that means together. Now, antonyms, on the other hand, are words that are the direct opposite of another word. Some obvious examples are good and bad. Okay, synonym means together. Okay, so these are words that have similar meaning. All right. Okay, so like customer and client, manager and supervisor, secretary, administrative assistant, and office assistant, speak and recite. They have similar meanings. Okay, back to antonyms. Thank you for that question. Back to antonyms. Some obvious examples are good and bad, hot and cold, old and young. Now, can you think of any other antonyms?
Please type any other antonyms in the chat box. Make sure everyone is selected in the to drop down and then press enter. Oh,
In and
and
out.
yep.
Oh my God. Humid, arid, right and wrong, hot, cold, yes. Okay, yes. Up and down, uh-huh. These are young and old, yes. Day and night, okay. Yes and no, absolutely. Right, left, all right, yes. How about true, false? How about interior, exterior, back, front? Yes. Push, pull. Okay. Okay. Up, down. Uh-huh. These are all really good. And you guys type so fast. That's impressive. Back, forth. Yes. Okay. All right. And an antonym is a word that has an opposite word. So words like open, shut, they are the opposite of each other. Up, down, those are antonyms. These are words that have opposite meanings. Okay? All right. So those are antonyms. Now, listen to this. I do want to point out that there are many more words that have synonyms or similar meanings than there are words with antonyms, since many things exist which do not have an opposite. An example of a word without an antonym is sandwich. The synonyms for sandwich are hoagie, grinder, and submarine, among others, but there is no opposite and or antonym for the word sandwich. Okay? Does that work for everybody? I knew it.
Uh,
Somebody said soup. Yes, that's what I think. But if you look it up, it doesn't have any words listed as antonyms. But I will stand by soup.
me too.
Okay. That's good. The last special type of word I want to talk about is the onym root word. It's also a homonym. Homonyms are two words that are spelled the same, sound the same, but have different meanings. And we know onym refers to name, but homo is another root word that means same. Okay? Now, here are some examples of homonyms. We have bark. You have the sound of a dog barking, and you have a tree bark. Address can be the location or to speak to people. Current can mean something's up to date or the movement of water. Rose is a type of flower or means to have gotten up. Now, as a side note, words that sound the same but are spelled different and mean different things are called homophones. A simple example of this is to, TWO, to, TOO, and to, Again, we know that homo means the same, but in this case, phone refers to sound. So these words sound alike, but have different meanings. And we'll talk more about homophones in a few minutes. Okay, now that we've discussed this, let's make sure we understand the differences among the three main onym root words: synonyms, antonyms, and homonyms. All right, let's test your knowledge. I have two columns on the screen. On the left are the three types of words we discussed: antonym, synonym, and homonym. On the right are examples of each. So please match the onym word on the left with the correct words on the right.
Again, remember you can use that chat box to tell us which onym belongs with the words on the right.
Yeah, this is a matching game.
So the first one, antonym. Which pair do you think that belongs to?
Okay, right. Engage, release. Yes, because they are the opposite of each other. All right. Synonym. Yes, use, utilize, utilize, use. Exactly. Good, 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 good. All right. And homonyms. Ring and ring. Good. Excellent. Okay. Perfect. Wonderful. All right. You guys did it. So the answers are antonym, engage, release; synonym, utilize, use; and homonym, ring and ring. Okay, good. All right. So let's talk about some tools that I can't live without. I do a lot of writing, so I use these tools. When in doubt, about the meaning of a word that excuse me, when I'm in doubt about the meaning of a word after I've thought about its root, I use the dictionary to check it because it's better to check than to use a word incorrectly. Likewise, when I've written something and then I reread it and I notice that I keep using the same word over and over, I look in a thesaurus, which is a dictionary of synonyms. The dictionary and the thesaurus are closely related. Synonyms have shades of meaning, so use the dictionary to make sure you have the correct word. Now, you can use a hard copy or an online version of these tools. Now, I like to use Merriam-Webster online, or I have the app on my phone. It actually has both a dictionary and a thesaurus. May be familiar with this name and may have used a paper version when you were younger. And Microsoft Word has the dictionary and thesaurus feature built in. So if you just select a word and right click on it, you can choose Smart Lookup, which is their dictionary, or Synonyms, which is their thesaurus. And that's very handy when you're writing. Now, most dictionaries show some basic information about a word. They usually have a pronunciation guide, the part of speech, such as a noun or a verb, and the most popular definition of the word. So let's take a look at the screen of the online Merriam-Webster dictionary. Notice how I put the search in the search, the word Excelsior at the top, and I have the dictionary tab selected. However, take a look at the first definition shown here. Fine curled wood shavings used especially for packing fragile items. Now, I know I didn't know the meaning of that meaning of the word Excelsior, And I didn't know why that, I didn't know, I didn't think that that's why it's the New York State motto. Okay, I don't think that's the motto for New York State. So let's take a look at the second definition. This is more like the definition I was expecting for a state motto. And you can see that Excelsior is a Latin word meaning higher. So that makes sense. Now, let's look at the thesaurus entry. I've typed in union in the search, and there are different meanings of the word union, and alternative words are offered for each meaning. And there's a box around the second definition. Now, notice that there are synonyms or words that have a similar meaning. There are some antonyms or opposite words for the first meaning too, but the second meaning doesn't have any. Now, if there is no antonym listed, you can click on a word related to it, and Nadal's going to do that, and you will see definitions, synonyms, and antonyms for that word, as you can see on the screen. Okay, so let's take a look at a scenario. Laura is writing an important report. She noticed that she keeps using the same word in the first paragraph. She would like to look for some synonyms for that word. Now, which tool would help her the most? A dictionary or a thesaurus?
Type the name of the tool that you think would help her the most in the chat box and press enter. Is it a dictionary or thesauruses?
Oh boy, it's pretty unanimous. Yes. Okay, I see everyone agrees. Uh-huh. It is the thesaurus that would help her most if she could only have one tool because she needs to get some synonyms. Great. All right. The goal of using a dictionary or a thesaurus is to correctly use words. It's not to make your writing or language confusing or to make your sentences needlessly wordy. There are two sentences on the slide. The first one is, utilize the photocopier next to the bureau abutting the front door. The words are all used correctly, but it's not easily understood. The second, use the photocopier next to the front desk, is simpler and easier to understand. Business writing in general should be clear, concise, and professional. All right, before we move on, does anyone have any questions about what we've talked about?
I see Raina has a question, but if anybody else has a question, please raise your hand or type it in the chat box.
I don't see the question. Is it in
Uh,
the chat? I don't
your
see it
hand
yet.
is up. Raina, do you have a question for us?
Okay.
Oh, you,
If you have a
her hand went
question,
down.
you, her hand went down.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh. Well, we'll have some time at the end if you have some questions. So if you want to hold it until we wrap up, that would be fine. But feel free to put your questions in the chat. Okay. All right. So let's move on. Some words in the English language are often confused and therefore used the wrong way. And in our last topic, we'll take a look at those words. Now, when you use words incorrectly, it can harm your credibility as a professional. But when you use your vocabulary well, you can set yourself apart from the average person. So if you take the time to master these words, you can avoid the most common mistakes made by the average writer. And I love this section. Okay, earlier I mentioned homophones, which are words that often sound the same, but are spelled differently and have different meanings. A simple example of this is flower and flower. These words are pretty easy to distinguish, but there are others that can be more difficult and easily confused. Now, Can you think of any other examples of homophones? Again, they are words that sound the same but are spelled differently and have different meanings. So if you know of any, share them in the chat. And I think, okay, all right. Okay, Vivian, yes, all right. Okay, him. Yeah, I didn't even think of that one. Good. All right, effect, yes. Raise, yes. Here. Oh, good. These are good. Flower, yes. I think I'll put one in. Let's see. How about this? Okay. Hour, yes. Good. Two, yes. We'll talk about that a little later. Okay. Meet, week. Ant. Good. Excellent. One, yes. Peace. Good. These are fabulous. Okay. All right. I want to break. Yeah, we're going to talk about that one too. All right. Thank you for sharing. And we'll be discussing, as I said, we'll be discussing some of these examples and more, including words that aren't quite homophones, but are often confused for one another. All right. First up, we're going to address the most commonly confused set of words: there, and there. There, There, refers to a place. There, Their, is possessive and indicates ownership. There, They, is a contraction that means they are. Now, if you're unsure of which to use in a sentence, you can see if it's possible to replace it with they are. If the sentence still makes sense the way you intended it, then you will use the contraction They''. And here's an example. They are standing by the printer. Could be reworded using the contraction They''. Now, if you want to indicate ownership, you would use Their, such as in the sentence, their birthdays are coming up. Those birthdays belong to them. Finally, if you want to refer to a place, you would use There, as in, do they have parking there? So before we move on, are there any questions about these commonly confused words?
If you do have questions, please feel free to click on the raise hand button and we'll call on you, and then you can type your question in the chat box because everybody is muted for the webinar.
Okay. All right. Doesn't look like we have any questions. So let's go on to the next set of commonly confused words. Then and than. Now, depending on your dialect, you may actually pronounce these slightly differently, but many times people pronounce them the same. Then, with an E, indicates a time component. I went to the store, then I took a walk. Than, with an A, indicates a comparison. 4 is greater than 3. So a quick trick for remembering these is to think of time equals then, because there is an E in both, and compare equals than, because there's an A in both. All right, the next one is a good one. Our next set of commonly confused words is its and its. The main difference here is the presence of the apostrophe. The apostrophe in its, it'', indicates that it is a contraction for it is. Now, remember when we spoke about the word there? It's the same difference. Its without an apostrophe indicates ownership or belonging. All right, and you'll just have to remember that, okay? So let's use them in a sentence to see the difference. I'm so glad it's Friday. That dog is chasing its tail. Now, in each sentence, which do you think is the right word to use?
Let us know in the
Okay.
chat box which word you think should be properly used in each sentence.
Yes, yes. Okay, good answers. Right, right. Okay, that's it. And again, the test is if you can say it is and the sentence makes sense, then you can use IT apostrophe S. But if it's possessive, you can't, you have to use the IT S without the apostrophe. Great. All right. Here's another one. Our next set is the ones similar to the ones we discussed before, your and your. Your, Y-O-U-R-E, with an apostrophe is a contraction, just like their and its, for you are. And your, Y-O-U-R, is a possessive pronoun that indicates ownership or belonging. And you can use the same trick as you did with its to determine whether to use your with an apostrophe. If you can replace it with you are, then use your with an apostrophe. If not, then use your, Y-O-U-R. For example, you're my best friend. Now that can be rephrased as you are my best friend. On the other hand, in the sentence, thank you for your email, it wouldn't make sense to say, thank you for your email. So here we use Y-O-U-R. All right. Now, want to test your knowledge? Which sentence has the word in bold used incorrectly? Is it A, the copy machine is over there? B, this vendor is less expensive than the other? C, set the table on its side? Or D, can you move your chair in, please? Okay,
I've
which one
opened
is
up
it?
I've opened up the polling panel again. Please click on option A, B, C, or D that you believe is a sentence with the incorrect use of the bolded word.
Okay,
Oh, everybody's
all
picking
right.
A.
Yeah, a lot of folks are picking A. All right. Yes, option A is used incorrectly. There, T-H-E-R-E, should have been used in this sentence because it's referring to a place, not ownership. And it's not a contraction for they are. All right. So here's another one. Another commonly confused set of words are lead and led. LED is the past tense of LEAD, and I'll use them in a sentence for you. I will lead you to the ocean. I know the way because I have been led there many times myself before. So it's also important to point out that lead is an element on the periodic table, a metal that used to be in paint and pencils. Now, this is an odd word because it's pronounced lead, L-E-D, but spelled lead, L-E-A-D. And I always have to be careful when I say that because I don't want to mix it up. So lead versus lead, but L-E-A-D can be pronounced lead when you're referring to the metal. All right. And here we have another one. And some folks put that in the chat a while ago. Affect and effect. Affect, which starts with an A, is usually a verb and means to influence, to impact, or to change something. And for example, you might say, your upbringing may affect your political opinions. Effect with an E is usually a noun and means the end result or consequence. For example, doctors worry about the effects of cigarette smoking on health. Now, here's a trick to remember the difference is that effect with an A is usually an action, which also starts with an A. Effect with an E is usually an end result, and N starts with E. The next set of commonly confused words is counsel and counsel. A counsel ending in CIL is a group or committee. Counsel, ending in SEL, is an attorney or person who is advising you. Sometimes lawyers are called counselors. And you can see why these words are often used incorrectly. But, of course, I have a trick for you to remember these too. Notice that the second C in counsel and pretend that it stands for committee. The S in counsel, the other word, stands for a single person who is advising you. And let's move on to another set, and some folks wrote this earlier. Break and break. Break with an EAK means to shatter or destroy. To break with a KE is a verb that means to stop or slow a vehicle. And then the word brake is also a noun and refers to the actual part on your vehicle that causes it to slow. So I think this is a good time to take a moment to make sure everyone understands what we just reviewed. Okay, so we're going to test your knowledge again. Which sentence has the word in bold used incorrectly? Is it A, in 1944, General Eisenhower led the invasion of Normandy? Is it B, doctors worry about the effects of obesity on health? Is it C, they use sledgehammers to break up the pavement? Or is it D, the attorney acted as counsel to her client? All right, here we go.
I've opened the
All right.
Slido panel again on the right-hand side of the screen. Take your mouse and click on the option which you feel is the most, which you feel is the incorrect use of the bolded word. And then when you are done, click on Send.
Okay. Yes, we are getting almost unanimous.
Mostly
All right.
bees.
Mostly B's. And if you said B, you are correct. It's wrong. Okay. Effects with an E should have been used in the sentence because it is related to a consequence or end result. Okay. Good job, everyone. This is another good one. So this word pair is capital with an A and capital with an O. Capital with an O refers only to the building in which a legislative body meets. Capital with an A is the correct word in every other case. For example, Albany is the capital of New York State. In some states, murder is a capital offense. To start a business, you need to raise capital or money. And a trick to remember this is that when the O is in the word capital, it stands for only or one because it is only used to talk about the Capitol building where the legislature meets. When capital is spelled with an A, you can pretend that it stands for always because that is the correct answer otherwise. Okay, so that's a good one to remember. The next set of commonly confused words are assure, insure, and sure. Assure with an A means to say, state as a certainty. For example, he assured us that there was no sign of foul play. Insure with an I means to provide insurance, such as life insurance or health insurance. An example of this would be the company insures more than 1 million individuals and corporations. Ensure with an E means to make certain. For example, the law ensures that there will be enough money to complete the project. So, to help you remember when to use each word, listen to this. You assure a person, you insure your car, and you ensure everything else. All right, here we have another set. All right, words cite with a C, cite with an S, and cite, S-I-T-E. To cite with a C means to list a source for an idea or something quoted. It can also mean to praise or recognize someone. Here's an example. The soldier was cited for heroism. Sight, spelled S-I-G-H-T, means something that is seen. And finally, site, S-I-T-E, is a location. The picture on the screen is of a construction site. So let me use them in some sentences for you. The officer cited, with a C, Section 32.3 of the Motor Vehicle Code to support the arrest. The accident was a depressing sight, S-I-G-H-T. And the business has been located at that site, S-I-T-E, for 54 years. All right, so I hope you can hear the difference and know the difference based on the spelling. Next, let's talk about between and among. You should use between when referring to two items. For example, they kept a secret between the two of them. And use among when referring to more than two. And an example of this would be they shared ideas among the group. And a lot of people make the mistake of switching those. All right, let's test your knowledge one last time. Take a look at these sentences. A, they need to raise additional capital for their business. B, I assure you everything is fine. C, in times of trouble, we must keep sight of our goal. Or D, let's keep this a secret between the two of us. One of the bold words is used incorrectly. Which one is it?
That Slido panel on the right-hand side of your screen is open again. Click which one is incorrect and just click enter. Looks like everybody is already picking A, most people,
Yes, I see.
as the
You
wrong
guys
answer.
remembered. Yes. Okay. All right. All right. You're right. That's right. It's wrong. Okay. A is incorrect. This should be using capital with an A because it relates to money and not the legislative house. So good. Remember, the O stands for only the place where the legislature meets. And we use the A for everything else, for all other examples. All right. Now, before we wrap up, are there any questions about other homophones or commonly confused words?
If you do have questions, you can raise your hand or type it in the chat box. If you do raise your hand and I don't see any answers in the chat box, I can unmute you. So don't be afraid to ask those questions.
Yeah, just type them in the chat. Or if you'd like, you can wait until we're, okay. All right, lead, what is the difference? Okay, so lead, L-E-A-D, um, uh, means to, is the past tense. Lead is the present tense of the word lead, L-E-D. So L-E-A-D is pronounced lead, okay, when it's a verb, and lead, L-E-D, is the past tense. Now, when you're talking about the mineral or the metal, L-E-A-D, it's pronounced lead, okay? Now, I know that's a little tricky, but the good thing is you will get the PowerPoint so you can take a closer look at lead versus lead, okay? So lead and and okay. These are tricky because the pronunciation depends on how you're using the word. So lead and lead are verbs, and lead, L-E-A-D, that is a noun, a mineral. I hope that answers it. It's a little tricky. All right. Okay, we have just a few more minutes, and let me wrap up with the last topic, but that was a very good question. I want to talk about spelling checkers, and we talked briefly about using a dictionary or thesaurus, but there are other tools that can make writing a little easier for you. Spelling checkers are one of them, and you should always use a spelling checker on your writing. I do. As many of you already know, it's important to remember that spelling checkers only check to see if a word is misspelled. They won't tell you if you use the wrong homophone, such as THERE, when you should have used THEIR. So whenever possible, use a grammar checker too, and ideally have someone else proofread your most important writing when you're done. Another pair of eyes. Okay, I'd like to thank you all for joining us today, and a special thanks to our host Nidal and the other Regina, our tech backup. We hope that you have learned some helpful ways to make sure that your use of vocabulary is both accurate and varied. And I challenge you to learn a new word every day and to try to use it in a sentence or two for practice. You may also want to start playing some of the word games that folks told us that they enjoy, like Words with Friends or crossword puzzles. And these are fun ways to add new words to your vocabulary. And again, some of you shared some great word games with us at the beginning of the webinar. Also, refer to the PowerPoint handout that you received, and also the other handout, which is expanding your vocabulary. And there's a list of some fantastic homonyms, often confused words for you to have at your desk so that you can refer to. Now, before we move on to questions and answers, I'd like to turn this over to our webinar host, who will talk to you about upcoming webinars and the course evaluation.
Thank,